Hello everyone, this is Lexicon Architect, and for today's commander we're going to be looking at Judith, Carnage, Connoisseur, a 5-mana Rakdos legendary creature human shaman that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one. That spell gains Death Touch and Lifelink, or you can create a 2/2 red imp creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So when we're using the first ability, we're using it only when we cast our 1-mana board wipes. Since the one mana board wipes hit all of our opponent's creatures, and since we have Death Touch, is going to kill all of them and also gain us life. So let's say if we wipe the board for 1 mana, and let's say I have 10 creatures total, we'll gain 10 life. We could also gain more life since we have cards in the deck that increase our damage by either +2 or triple that amount of damage. And then when we use the second ability is to use our cards that allow us to draw cards by sacking a creature. So basically it replaces itself. So let's say if we have a 2/2 imp already on the battlefield, we use something like Deadly Dispute, sacrifice it, draw some cards. We'll then create another imp, and then every time we sacrifice an imp or it dies, it's going to ping each opponent for 2 damage. So let's get into mana value 1. We're going to be looking at some new cards and Hell to Pay. An X mana red spell that says it deals X damage to target creature and create a number of tap treasure tokens equal to the amount of excess damage that this creature dealt this way this turn. So let's say they have a 1/1, we blasted for 5, then we can generate 4 tokens. Next, we're going to look at Insatiable Avarice. Um, Again, another new card that has spree. So you could choose one or more additional costs. So for paying an additional 2 mana, you can search your library for a card, then shuffle and put that card on top. Or for 3 mana, we can force a player to draw 3 cards and lose a 3 life. So if we do have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana, we can do both, and then we can stack our deck in a way to get the card that we need. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Vampiric Rites. For 2 mana, we can sacrifice a creature to gain life and draw a card. So it's going to help keep our hand loaded as well. At mana value 2, we're going to be looking at cards like Blood Artist, which works well on our Aristocrat plan. Then we have cards like Electrostatic Field and Kessid Flamebreaker and Firebrand Archer to deal 1 damage to each opponent every time we cast a non-creature spell. And then we also have cards like Young Pyromancer that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. At mana value 3, we have Burgi, which is going to allow us to generate red mana whenever we cast a spell. And until the end of turn, we do not lose this mana as steps and phases end. And we're going to ignore the boast ability. Then we have Braids to force our opponent to sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker if we have one of those, but we'll most likely be sacrificing a creature. And if they do not sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it, for each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. Then we have Mahidi, that basically says at the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. Not only our cards, but our opponent's cards as well. It's going to generate us a bunch of treasure tokens. Then we have Morbid Opportunist to allow us to draw a card whenever a creature dies. This ability only triggers once, but it also triggers on our opponent's creatures as well. Then we have Phyrexian Arena to allow us to draw an additional card during our upkeep and ping us for 1 damage. And then lastly, we have Veto that says whenever we gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So again, let's say we board wipe. We're going to use the same example as earlier. We board wipe for 1, and we have a damage enabler. It's going to do more damage and allow us to gain a ton of life and then drain target opponent for amount of life that we gain this turn. At mana value 4, we have Blood Letter that allows us to double up on the amount of life an opponent lost this turn. Then we have cards like Mirkwood Bats that says whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses a life. Then we have a new card in Rodeo Pyromancers that says whenever you cast your first spell each turn, you add 2 red mana. Then we have cards like Solfim and Torbrand to increase our damage output. At mana value 5, we have a secondary win con in Revel in Riches that says whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you create a treasure token, and at the beginning of our upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. Then for mana value 6, we have one of my favorite cards ever printed, which is Arcane Bombardment. That says whenever you cast your first instant or spell, sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may choose you may cast any number of those copies without paying their mana cost. So this works well for us as well, since we can play cards, instant or sorceries on our opponent's turn, and then get to recur all those cards that are exiled underneath Arcane Bombardment. And then lastly, at mana value 8, we have City on Fire, which has Convoke. And if a source you control will deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. That's the deck. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a good one.